delighted to be joined by you today. Please just set the scene for us in terms of what you do in your work at Go Ultra Low and how your role in marketing communications is key to your work, please.
Sure. Firstly, thank you very much for having me on and having Go Ultra Low on. It's a great opportunity to kind of spread the message a bit further about the uptake of EVs. So yeah, just a bit of background, I guess, on Go Ultra Low. We, as a campaign, were set up about 6 or 7 years ago as a joint initiative between the Office for Low Emission Vehicles here in the UK and the automotive industry. And over those years, we've grown quite considerably. So we now feature pretty much any automotive manufacturer in the UK who produces pure electric vehicles. And we've continued that partnership with government, of course. And we also have some members from the energy side as well. And what we're here for is to essentially, we understand that the change from petrol and diesel vehicles is quite a big change. It's a sort of big piece of behaviour change for both the general the public and also businesses as well. So the campaign was set up to help people understand what it means to change and what the advantages are, and just generally give them the information that they need to make informed decisions about changing from petrol and diesel vehicles to electric. You know, they've been around for 100 years or something, I think, as someone else mentioned, and the habits that there are involved in owning a petrol or diesel vehicles are so ingrained that it can be quite difficult to sort of just easily make that switch without lots of questions. So hopefully what our campaign does is in many ways twofold. So a sort of strategy that we normally stick to is initially trying to get people interested and excited really about the technology itself and the vehicles that are available, but then also helping them with the more detailed information that they need, whether that's on costs, charging, range, the different types of charging, etc., etc. So we kind of, yeah, like I say, two phases. We want to make sure people are interested and excited by the category as a whole. And I think, as Amber mentioned, there is a lot of misinformation out there, and I think that almost a certain amount of concern and fear about making that switch. So hopefully what we're able to do is just give people that information that will make it easier for them.
Very good. Well, thanks so much for that opening gambit as to the strategy that you deploy. So moving from strategy to execution, could you give us an insight into some of the tools that you deploy to engage consumers to develop this wider excitement and understanding of electric vehicles?
Yeah, sure. So largely we are a marketing communications campaign. We do some other things as well, but we work across a number of channels. We have made the decision generally to target quite a broad audience. There's a debate we have actually internally as a team. Do we target those people who would be easy to tip over into EV ownership, or do we just target almost everybody? And we always pretty much, you know, land on the side of trying to target a very wide audience, because you know, we know that this is a long-term thing. It needs to happen. I say long-term, actually, you know, perhaps this needs to happen in 10 or 15 years time, which in the grand scheme of things isn't very long, but that means that we do have to target quite a broad audience. So we generally, in our media targeting, for example, look at adults between the ages of 30 and 65, for example. That said, we're probably going to be lowering that age group. I think somebody else touched on it. Actually, the younger age groups are in many ways much more interested and knowledgeable about this technology already. I know that my 7-year-old son just thinks that cars are electric anyway. So, you know, there are different things that you need to do for people at kind of different stages of the journey. So we do messaging to target people at different stages. But in terms of your question about tools, we generally will use quite high profile paid media channels such as TV, video on demand, digital, out of home, with those messages where we want to create that interest and excitement for electric vehicles, but then we back that up with more targeted messaging. So as I say, around the charging costs, etc., in those channels where you can be a bit more targeted. So whether that's digital, social, we do quite a lot on social, where you can obviously be a bit more comprehensive in the messages that you put across. We also do quite a lot of PR, so sort of PR events, if you like. So I don't know, it's just as a little example, at Christmas last year, we set up some electric vans to pick up people's Christmas trees on behalf of local councils and things, just to get that visibility. It's not just cars, it's vans as well, and they can kind of do all these different jobs. So that's the kind of thing that we might do. And we also attend quite a lot of events. So whether we've got a kind of two-pronged event strategy as well, we know that, and the manufacturers know too, that the best way to persuade people about how brilliant electric cars are is to get them in them, to get them touching them, feeling, and then ultimately driving them. So we do a number of test drive events. And it's amazing, actually. One of them that we do is at the British Touring Car Championship, which is obviously attended by lots of people that would describe themselves as petrol heads, but we give them the opportunity to test drive a lot of electric vehicles around the track there. And the reception to them is always absolutely brilliant. They're always kind of completely shocked in a good way about how good the cars are. So we do try and do test drive events wherever possible, because they do go down really well once people have actually driven them. And then we'll also attend more sort of consumer events to help give out advice. So we might attend something like Countryfile Live or Grand Designs Live and give people the opportunity to get advice and ask a lot of questions about what, how they can make that change to electric. So essentially, I guess my answer is that we use a lot of different channels, depending on the different messages and the people that we're targeting.
Thanks so much. I was going to ask you for some of your success stories, but I think with the electric Christmas tree and the event side, I think you've answered that question. But moving on then to another question, obviously with this year, with real world events having disappeared as an option, how have you pivoted your campaigns, your strategy, your tools with everything that's gone on this year with the world of events, real world physical events having been taken away from us?
Well, yeah, so obviously we pretty much canned the majority of the events that we were due to attend and carry out this year, with the exception of the one I mentioned at Brands Hatch at the British Touring Car Championship. That is in fact going ahead, so hopefully it'll be as successful as previous years. But in terms of, we haven't really at the moment gone down the route of events such as this so much, online events, because for us, as I was saying, we really want to get people, in front of the cars, in the cars, etc. So without going into too much detail, what we've done with that budget is invest more in our kind of above the line channels, for example. So getting people excited about EVs on TV or something like that. So we just kind of shift things around, really.
Yep, very good. So I'll open up some questions then to our online audience. And if there are any other questions from the online audience, please do submit them either to Poppy or to Tim from DPD or from Ronnie from Drives as our next two speakers. But Poppy, this first question for you from our online audience is which audience seems the most receptive to Go Ultra Low campaigns in your experience?
That's actually a really interesting question. And I'd say there were two answers. So if you look at the people that actually buy electric vehicles, interestingly, they seem to be probably over 55 actually, so an older audience. And I think you find that, people potentially then that they're willing to start looking into the detail of it, finding out about the cost savings they can make. You'll often find they do have a bit more disposable income available to them to be able to purchase a new car for a start. And they may be from a household that has more than one vehicle. So it's much easier for somebody to sort of try electric if they've got two cars in that household. So I think that's potentially some of the reason behind those people being sort of more predisposed to actually purchase. That said, I do think a younger audience are just generally more sort of fully accepting of electric vehicles. There's a sort of gap in between where I think there still is quite a lot of skepticism about the technology, and where a lot of those myths and concerns do still kind of perpetuate. So it's almost like the younger and the older audience are kind of with us, but we need to tackle that middle section.
Very good. That's great. And another question from Kate Tyrrell asks, which platform is having the biggest impact for you in terms of engagement?
That's a good one. I mean, it depends what we're looking for. So as I mentioned previously, one of the main things we're looking for is to create that interest and excitement. And you can imagine that being a campaign partly funded by government, we have to do a lot of research to show how successful our channels are. And in terms of creating, you know, that behavior change and that excitement, probably are more high profile channels such as video on demand, TV at home. They probably do, radio in particular actually, always gives us really good results. We use Kantar to tell us kind of how people's attitudes change before and after seeing our communications. And those channels I mentioned probably are the ones that make people's opinions change for the better.
Very good. There's a question which I think you may have touched on there, but to ask it specifically from Carola Grillo. She asks, do you use behavioral science or behavioral economics to guide you in your marketing strategy?
To a certain extent, yes. Our agencies, we work with a number of sort of well-known marketing and advertising agencies, and yes, from time to time in the strategies that we put together, there will be investigations in that area to help us. We do a lot of quite bespoke research, I suppose, to help us plan our strategies, and it's often around attitudes and what people's concerns are. But yeah, to a certain extent, we will use behavioural science in there too.
So thanks very much indeed to all our panelists. We will now open up the conversation to questions between you on the panel. So a question for Ronnie, for Poppy at Go Ultra Low about some of the OEMs like Audi, BMW and Nissan being members of Go Ultra Low, and you were asking Poppy if she could speak a bit about your partnerships at Go Ultra Low with those major industry players and how it impacts EV adoption. So Poppy, that question to you from Ronnie.
So yeah, since Go Ultra Low's inception, we've always worked with the major vehicle manufacturers in the UK. Our model actually changed about a year ago. So when Go Ultra Low was first set up, vehicle manufacturers we would essentially put a business case to them, and they would decide whether they wanted to join Go Ultra Low for a fee, which we obviously put towards our marketing communications campaign, and that fee was matched by government. It's slightly different now in that any vehicle manufacturer who produces or other sells a fully electric vehicle in the UK and therefore receives the plug-in car grant for that vehicle is automatically signed up to Go Ultra Low as part of that contract. So what's good about that for us is that it means that we now represent almost, not quite, but almost all of the major manufacturers operating in the UK. And in terms of how that helps from a consumer messaging point of view, one of the most sort of popular, if you like, messages that we put out and most surprising for consumers is are those around the number of models that are available and what those models are. I think, you know, now we're at over 100 different EV models on the market in the UK, and if you tell a consumer that, they're absolutely gobsmacked in an absolutely positive way. And so working directly with all of those manufacturers really helps us to put out those messages, but then also for us to showcase all the brilliant cars that there are available. You know, we use them in all our comms, our advertising, a lot of those sort of PR activities that I was talking about, and at events. So yeah, for us, working directly with all of those manufacturers is really, really helpful. I think that's what the question was.
Thanks very much indeed, Poppy. You're very popular amongst your fellow panelists. There's another question to you from Amber, and it's simply, do you work with social media influencers?
Yes, we do, and I think I saw there was another question about this. Yes, not a huge number, and actually it's probably an area we'll probably look to expand on going forward, but we do work with sort of some celebrity ambassadors, and we use them via their social media channels. So we work primarily with Ben Fogle, who I'm sure particularly people dialing in from the UK will know very well, and the way that he sort of helps us is that he has very good sustainability, environmental credentials, for example. He also has a really big audience here in the UK. He's a very sort of popular character, so working with him just helps us to quite easily reach his audiences and an audiences who probably are likely to be quite interested in the world of EVs, because they probably are in some way interested in kind of environmental or sustainability subject. So yeah, he's the main person we work with, but we work with others as well, some sort of specifically in the EV space, or particularly when we're doing media partnerships, we might work with some other celebrities as well.